Simcha, celebration, Simcha, Simcha, celebration of life.
Hi from me, Jared Epstein, and welcome to another episode of Simcha, a celebration of life. We might be on lockdown and staying safe, but that doesn't mean we can't still connect and learn. Shavuot is a festival that celebrates the Jewish people receiving the Torah, and traditionally when we eat lots of dairy food. Chanan and Suiza takes us through the steps of making one of his own favorite recipes, Churros, with the help of his mom Debbie Suiza during the COVID-19 lockdown.
Hello everyone and welcome to my kitchen. So during the situation we're in with lockdown, we're a little bit restricted, but that doesn't mean that we're going to stop from celebrating the wonderful Chagim we enjoy as Jews. So helping me today in my kitchen is my wonderful mother, Debbie Suiza. So she's going to be behind the camera if you see her. Yeah. Generally during the time of Shavuot, Jews tend to eat food that has milk products in it. And that normally comes from the idea that Shavuot is about celebrating the time of the giving of the Torah. And one thing that we understand to be in the Torah is our home, our heritage, the land of Israel. And we understand the land of Israel to be a place flowing with milk and honey. So today we're going to be making churros, which is traditionally a Spanish-Mexican dish. Given my personal Jewish heritage, we're going to be taking a bit of a Sephardi twist on this, something a bit Spanish, something from other places of the world. So yeah. We're going to need 2 medium-sized eggs, 1 cup of water, 1 cup of flour, half a stick of butter, 3 tablespoons of brown sugar, and yeah, that's it. We're pretty much ready to go after that. So into a pan, you're going to want to mix the butter. You can cube it just to make sure that it melts easier. We don't really need to keep it cold. 1 cup of water, and the 3 tablespoons of brown sugar. So you're going to want to make sure that everything's pretty much getting dissolved all together inside the pan, and then we're going to move to the stove. We've turned the burner on high, and essentially what we're doing is just waiting for the butter and the sugar to melt together. We want this to boil, but we don't necessarily want it to burn. My grandmother was Spanish. She would make the butter herself. It was homemade butter, and that was just part of the whole experience of making this entire dish at home. Everyone absolutely loves to be involved. Once all the butter and the sugar have melted into the water, we're going to drop all of the flour into the pot. And what you want to do now is you want to mix this very, very, very thoroughly. So you want to make sure that all the flour is incorporated as quickly as possible into the mixture. Once all the flour has been incorporated properly into the mixture, what you should kind of reach is something a little bit sticky. And what you can do is you can decant that into a separate bowl. Just to kind of cool down a little bit, we're going to add some eggs to this. And then once you've added in the eggs, you can start to stir again. And don't worry if it starts to maybe look a little bit disjointed or a little bit sloppy. It just takes a little bit of stirring to get the eggs incorporated into the mixture.
When Chanan was little, and his father used to make churros for Shavuot, this was always his job to do the stirring.
When everything's mixed, it's time for piping. So piping can be a little bit difficult, just in getting the dough into the bag. So what you want to do is pick up dollops of it and gently spoon it in. And you can use your hand to push against the spoon and make sure you get a good amount of this dough inside the piping bag. You don't need to do all the piping all at once, so just fill the bag as much as you can.
Can we see what it looks like?
And then what you want to do afterwards is twist the end, and this way you can pipe with one hand. So moving here, you want to take a pair of scissors and slowly, you're going to pipe a churro inside the pan, and as it comes to the right length, you want to cut it off. You want to make sure that your oils are around 350 degrees. And then what you want to do is slowly make sure that you keep turning them. We want to make sure that these are cooked on all sides. And what we're looking for is a really, really nice golden dark brown. Okay, so once it's gotten the right color and it's cooked all the way through, we're going to put it onto some tissue paper for a few seconds just to make sure that it's not absolutely drenched in oil. And once we're done with that, we're going to move over and straight into the cinnamon sugar. It's traditional to have them coated in cinnamon sugar. So for every 1 cup of sugar, you want about a 1/4 cup of cinnamon, just to make sure that you get that cinnamon flavor. And one thing that's always fantastic with churros, and is definitely customary around the time of Shavuot, is ice cream. Everyone absolutely loves ice cream, and they're fantastic with churros.
And your safta used to put honey on it or maple syrup.
So here are your churros, ready for Shavuot. Just to thank my mother for helping me out with filming this, especially during the time of lockdown. But yeah, enjoy your chag, enjoy your churros, and Chag Sameach.
Chag Shavuot Sameach.
Jewish people live in communities around the world, geographically separated, but spiritually and culturally connected. South Africa is no different, and the recently founded Small Jewish Communities Association under Rabbi Moshe Silberhaft caters to the needs of the Jews outside of the big centers. Simcha went to find out more about the unique country communities and how they're still part of the bigger circle.
In 1949, the Jewish Board of Deputies under Chief Rabbi Louis Rabinowitz established the Country Communities Department. The reason for that was the small communities of the outlying areas in the country communities were dwindling in numbers, and they couldn't afford and sustain their own rabbis. And so the chief rabbi felt that it was important that there should be a traveling rabbi to move around the small communities to offer them support, offer them guidance, education for the children, etc. And so for 70 years, the Jewish Board of Deputies successfully ran a country communities department. I was the 7th country communities rabbi to fulfill this role. And in 2018, the Board of Deputies felt that it was time for them to close down the department because the demands on them for the current situation in South Africa, etc., were becoming quite harsh, and they needed to focus all their attention on South African Jewry and the well-being of South African Jewry. And so, following a number of meetings and various consultations, the Small Jewish Communities Association of South Africa, it's quite long, SJCA, was established under the leadership of Barney Horwitz, who's a Jewish lawyer in Kimberley.
Rabbi Silberhaft and I go back to when he first became the country communities rabbi. We share a vision, and that vision is that simply because you do not live in a densely populated Jewish area does not mean that you are not Jewish. You have a Jewish identity. You have the same 5,000 years of history as a person who goes to Marais Road in Sea Point or who goes to Sydenham Highlands North in Johannesburg. It's the same line. We have the same ideals, the same identity, the same moral values. And if you were to apply strict orthodoxy in these communities, they wouldn't exist.
Country communities was historically placed with the Jewish Board of Deputies because so many of the people were married out of the faith or very far from Jewish religion today. With the Jewish Board of Deputies and now the Small Jewish Communities Association, there's a lot more tolerance for people that are married out of the faith. There's no judgment at all because a Jew is a Jew. And that is where there are slight differences between the local rabbinate of the bigger centers and myself. However, there is an understanding of where we're coming from. And because I think we're such a small market, if you want to call it that, there's a tolerance for our behavior. So my position as a country communities rabbi, or the traveling rabbi as I've been known, hasn't changed at all. Our responsibilities continue to make sure that people in the small communities have a hotline to the Jewish Center, which is Johannesburg, and to our offices. Jewish people in the small communities need any support, backup if they experience, God forbid, any anti-Semitism. Comes Pesach, they need supplies, God forbid, a funeral, etc. We are their direct contact number.
Rabbi Silberhaft's been an absolute boon.
I don't know how we would have gone on without him. If I ever had a question about anything, I could always get a hold of Rabbi Silberhoft, and he would answer and also not speak down to you or make you feel like you asked such a dumb question. It was never like that. He'd give me his opinion and his answer, and he gave us wide assistance in every field.
And what he does for the country communities is just unbelievable. And he ensures that you have your rites of passage wherever you are.
Hello. One of the many roles of the traveling rabbi is to make sure that members in the Jewish community of our country communities throughout the country are kept in touch with realities of Judaism. One of them is having a Jewish calendar in every home. That is to make sure that people know when Shabbat is, if they're interested in a Shabbat time, but most importantly is the Chagim, the Jewish holidays, and if somebody has a Yortzeit. South African Jews in particular may not be all that observant, but one of the very important things that they observe is a Yortzeit. What is a Yortzeit? It is the anniversary date of the passing of family members. And how do we commemorate it? It's by lighting a 24-hour candle, as well as, if possible, going to the synagogue and reciting something called Kaddish. But most importantly is to remember and mark the day by lighting a candle. So every person in the country community gets a calendar. It's obviously got our details on it and our branding, etc. But it tells them when every Jewish holiday is, minor festivals, major festivals, and the Hebrew dates when the Yortzeits take place. We're also involved with maintenance of Jewish cemeteries around the country, very, very important. We offer great support to people in the small communities, to children, for example, that are going to non-Jewish schools. First of all, to be educated, not always for the negative or reactive situation of to avoid or to deal with anti-Semitism, but more importantly, to be better educated about Israel, about Judaism, about what Jews are about, etc., that if they ever experience anything negative, they're able to respond. Thanks, everybody, for coming together this evening. It's important that we respect our community, our forefathers, all the beautiful people that are on the walls around us here. We're also involved with assisting needy people. Obviously, there are a number of elderly people, needy people. We don't have, unfortunately, facilities to offer financial assistance, but we channel them to the organizations that are willing to assist in the bigger centers. People ask me after 26 years why I still want to continue with this position and with administering to the small communities and their needs. And every trip that I undertake, it's as if it's my first trip. First of all, it's the enthusiasm of the people that greet me, always welcoming, always appreciative of the work that we do. And also, there's always something new on each trip that I undertake. So it's never, I've got to go and take that route again. Never that at all. There's always something new. People are always appreciative. People are always welcoming. And most importantly is I know that from the feedback we get is that not only the Jewish people, but the non-Jewish people that we interact with as well appreciate our role and our involvement. You know, we undertaking the restoration of a number of cemeteries around South Africa, and many of the local communities, churches, etc., notice that the Jewish community that almost doesn't exist anymore in these towns is now coming from the bigger centers and restoring the cemeteries. They get inspired by our action. They get interested. And in fact, in Zimbabwe, for example, it is a small town. We restored the cemetery, and the local Muslim community became so inspired and interested what we're doing that they are now looking after our cemetery as well. Here is a community that we know have a history, but yet they're willing and want to be involved in our restoration and upkeep of cemeteries around the country.
Rabbi Silberhoft's work in maintaining and neatening up a lot of cemeteries is very important. We were made to feel like we're part of a community that belongs to the Jewish community of South Africa. We don't have the full services, but we're still made to feel that we are still part of the community. We're not cast out on a limb and you must now carry on by yourselves. So having Rabbi Silberhoft and the small communities association is very important as far as I'm concerned.
Our motto is committed to Jewish life. And we are committed to make sure that anybody that is Jewish can walk around proud that they are Jewish, knowing, first of all, to be educated, but more importantly, knowing that if they ever get in a situation that they need to call up for support, etc., backup, there's a hotline number, and that's our number.
He's just a phone call away. In fact, what happened one Shabbos morning, I was wanting to clear messages and I hit his number by mistake, and I immediately stopped the call. But as soon as Shabbos was over, he phoned me, he said, I see there's a missed call from you. Is everybody all right? And I said, Moshe, apologies. He said, you shouldn't have been clearing your phone on Shabbos.
Jewish musician Choni G has made great strides since winning the 2012 Jewish Star Competition. Now Cape Town-based, he recently launched his album 5780, sharing his work with South Africa. He talks to us about his musical journey and the process he went on to create Jewish music with a South African twist.
I'm one of 11 siblings, the sixth child, and I grew up in Johannesburg, and then I moved to Cape Town 5 years ago. So I guess you could say I'm a musician. I do different things. One is I'm the chazan or cantor of the great synagogue in Cape Town, the Garden Shul. We have a choir and we sing Friday night and Saturday, Shabbat. And I've brought in a more modern approach to some of the prayers, so you can call it pop chazan. I'm also what you could call a wedding singer. I've sung at a lot of private events, weddings, bar mitzvahs and bat mitzvahs too. Mainly weddings, I would say. I've done a lot in South Africa, in Johannesburg and Cape Town, different parts of South Africa, and I've flown around the world as well. My music journey started as a kid. Every weekend on Shabbat I would hear the choral harmonies, and so that was my first understanding of choral music and harmonies, and loved it. That's my beginning. I sang in the kids' choir and in the synagogue choir when my dad was a rabbi, so I sang in the shul choir as a kid. I was a child soloist and a soloist in school, but that was the sum of it. I mean, I didn't really study music, or I was exposed to it through the synagogue or through school. Musical inspirations, I would say, and they're not necessarily Jewish. I appreciate lots of different types of music. I mean, on a daily basis, I listen to all sorts of music, from Jewish to completely not. African influences, like I love African harmonies.
It's one way. I'm just worried it might be a bit too much.
That's actually probably subconsciously why I featured an African choir on my album. For the last 6 months I was working hard to finish this album. It's called 5780. It's the name of the Jewish New Year. And it's a mix of original songs and traditional Jewish classical songs, including songs from the synagogue, which I've remixed. Got a much more modern sound, soulful sound. I've also recorded with the Khayelitsha United Mambazo Choir. Some of the songs, so I knew what kind of arrangements I wanted in my head, but because I didn't really play, so I did it like a little bit unconventional. You know, I would like beatbox or drum on the table the beats, and then I would sing the dun 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 dun, you know, like get the groove of like, and then the guy would like put in the beat and he would put in the bass. A lot of it was very organic, and I liked that process because it was like what you're hearing, and you can kind of, you know, just work with like someone right there and put the keys down and put the little, or in studio I went into with the trumpet or the violin player, and I basically like just played all the lines. I love like flugel sounds. I really like that kind of, you know, with just you and someone else and you're just creating that thing. On the other hand, it was a great experience to record with the band as well. So we did a core band, drums, bass, keys, guitar in one session, and then sometimes, you know, afterwards we'd bring in trumpet, violin, percussionist, flautist for one or two of the songs. And then the choir came in afterwards and did the 3 songs. What I'd like to achieve with the music is for it to be, to reach far and wide, and people from all backgrounds and globally, South Africa, to listen to it and to be able to perform with the choir, with the band around the world, and yeah, that's my dream.
That brings us to the end of this week's episode of Simcha, a celebration of life. As always, we'd love to hear from you, so please send us a Facebook message at Spirit Sister Productions. From me, Jared Epstein, and the Simcha team, remember, after Shavuot, we may need to go on a diet to cheddar a few kilos.